South Africa held the G20 presidency from December 1, 2024 to November 30 of 2025, focusing on solidarity, equality and sustainability with an emphasis on African development, climate finance, debt sustainability and inclusive growth. The main G20 Leaders Summit took place in Johannesburg from November 22 until 23 of 2025. For the first time, the G20 leaders met on the African continent. Following Indonesia, India and Brazil, the South African G20 presidency was the fourth consecutive presidency held by a country from the Global South. In a meeting presided over by Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa, the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed indicated that the recent African Soil G20 summit is historic.
It is with humility and hope that I address you on African soil at this historic G20 summit. Humility because Ethiopia's journey is still unfolding. Hope because our story, like that of many nations here, shows that transformation is possible even in difficult circumstances. Ethiopia is a land of ancient civilization, defined by resilience and prospects still being written. Our homeland has sheltered faiths. Our people have built lasting societies. From this legacy comes Maddamar, a philosophy of unity in diversity, of synergetic collaboration that multiplies potential and of progress shared by all. Guided by this spirit, Ethiopia is moving toward inclusive growth. Our cities are becoming hubs of innovation. Industrial parks reshape economies. Farmers use tools their parents could never imagine. Young entrepreneurs and building businesses that were impossible to dream of a generation ago. For too long, countries like ours have been labeled fragile or poor. Yet our story is a quiet revolution of bold actions rewriting what is possible. Because growth is the achievement of people who refuse to be left behind.
Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, on his part said, the ideas brought to the table from all corners of the world are striking due to the similarities of interest across all.
It's striking listening to the contributions that across our different corners of the globe, we're all concerned to achieve the same thing for our citizens. Good jobs, lower bills, higher growth, better living standards. And that is what my government is focused on. And we want to work with our partners around the table to make that happen. But there's no doubt the road ahead is tough. This is a moment of mounting competition and crises around the world. And that, I think, has been mentioned by pretty well every contribution so far. Fragility in the Middle East, rising threats of authoritarianism and fragmentation, as well as Russia's ongoing unjustified war in Ukraine. The shockwaves of that invasion are still reverberating through global markets today. It has hit growth, driven up food and energy prices, and deepened persistent imbalances and instability across the world. With all that in mind and echoing what others have said, the role of the G20 is critical at this moment. Growth must be a mission for us all as the means to improve lives, to fund public services, and to keep our people secure. The G20 has worked together before to fix fundamental problems in the global economy. We need to find ways to play a constructive role again today in the face of the world challenges. And I'd like to see us come together around a 5-point plan for growth that leaves no one behind.
Gibran Rakabuming Raka, the Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, appreciated the G20 convention to take place on the African soil. As to him, it's an indication that the Global South is no longer a bystander.
G20 summit, the first being held on African soil. This shift where the Global South is no longer a bystander, but a co-driver of Global South. Excellencies, Indonesia believes that global growth must not only be strong, but also fair and inclusive to uplift each and every nation. Indonesia welcomes the G20's focus on sustainable finance, yet ambition must go further to close gaps and to pursue adaptation, mitigation, and transition that is just and fair. The world needs financing that is more accessible, predictable, and equal, especially for developing nations, through debt relief, innovative financing, blended finance, and green transition mechanism.
The Foreign Affairs, International Trade and Worship Minister of Argentina, Pablo Curno, pointed the principles of solidarity, equality and sustainability shall be grounded in sheer international system.
We believe that the principles of solidarity, equality and sustainability can only be achieved within an international system grounded in freedom, clear rules and responsible economic governance. Economic growth remains the foundation for job creation, investment and resilience in our economies. Such growth depends on policies that promote stability, innovation, and private sector development within a predictable framework grounded in the rule of law and a market-based economy, as highlighted in the G20's foundational declarations. Argentina has learned firsthand that long-term growth is only possible when supported by sound public finances. Fiscal imbalances contribute to inflationary pressures, limit investment, and erode economic confidence. Addressing these imbalances through responsible fiscal management and expenditure control is critical. In this context, solidarity can only be effective when growth rests on a stable macroeconomic environment, a legal order that protects private property, and clear rules that expand opportunities for private sector development and all individuals in our society. Associated with this is equality of opportunity, which is both achievable and desirable when grounded in the principle of equality under the law. Achieving this requires structural reforms that foster solid institutional and regulatory frameworks, laying the groundwork for markets to function efficiently, attract investments, encourage job creation, and boost productivity. Equally important is creating opportunities through education, which serves as a powerful equalizing tool and equips individuals with the skills needed to fully benefit from these economic reforms.
Representing the great nation of Mexico, Edgar Amador Zamora, the Minister of Finance and Public Credit of Mexico, said Mexico is a country deeply interested in the process of promoting peace on the basis of justice.
Mexico is a country deeply involved in the promotion of peace as a basis for justice, fair trade, social equity, gender equality, cooperation for development, and respect for human rights. Economic welfare and cooperation for development are shared responsibility among nations. In a world defined by interdependence, no country can isolate itself or prosper at the expense of others. Choosing cooperation is, in essence, choosing a common future grounded in justice. The expansion of trade can drive employment, raise incomes, and reduce poverty, all core dimensions of sustainable development. Moreover, international trade fosters the global adoption of green technologies, serving as a powerful mechanism to accelerate the transition toward low-carbon, resource-efficient economies. However, the expansion of global trade also brings complexities. To fuel global economic growth, its benefits remain unevenly distributed. It promotes the exchange of knowledge and culture in labor protection and social inclusion, particularly for women and underserved communities. Environmentally, trade can advance green standards and technologies, but it also contributes to emissions, overexploitation of resources, and biodiversity loss. The question, therefore, is how to ensure that global trade benefits are shared equitably and if directly contributes to sustainable development and shared prosperity.
Deputy Chief of Staff of the Presidential Executive Office of the Russian Federation, Maxim Oreshkin, underlined sanctions, trade barriers, and the seizure of sovereign assets have become major hindrances for the interdependence among nations.
These days, global economy is facing a severe fragmentation. Advanced economies continue to engage in illegitimate unilateral actions, including sanctions, trade barriers, technological and educational restrictions, as well as seizure of sovereign assets. These methods of unfair competition destabilize the global economic architecture, disrupt supply chains, discourage long-term investments, hold back the global growth, and undermine progress in achieving the sustainable development goals. Today, we are here in Africa, a region that urgently needs strong economic growth to meet the needs of its fast-growing population. We should talk today about access of Africa and the Global South to new technologies, healthcare, education, and most importantly, financing. We're concerned that financial flows to developing countries are simply not enough. Even the official development assistance came to a steep decline in 2024 of 7.1% and is projected to fall further. While Africa is in dire need of capital inflow, total net borrowings by G7 governments, according to the IMF data, will reach almost $3 trillion this year. By the way, it equals to total GDP of the whole African continent. Mounting sovereign debt of several G7 countries pushes them to the verge of fiscal collapse. Artificially inflated financial bubbles may trigger a knockdown to the global economy.
According to Goran Alexander Stab, President of the Republic of Finland, the next nexus of power is moving toward the east and the south parts of the planet.
The nexus of power is moving eastbound and southbound. And now I think all of us pretty much have a choice. And the choice is between multilateralism, which you are representing, and multipolarity. And these two things are very different. For me, multilateralism is about cooperation, it's about rules, it's about norms, and it's about institutions. I like these rules because they are the ones that bring exactly the thing that you have up there on the board: solidarity, equality, and sustainability. My big worry right now is that the world is moving more in a multipolar direction. And multipolarity, though it gives power to nation states as such, is problematic because it's more transactional, it's more about deals, and therefore it's more prone to conflict. There have been many excellent interventions here today about rules on trade, rules on the way in which we engage with each other.
The Prime Minister of Ireland, Michael Martin, reminded Ireland is committed to international law and multilateralism during his speech delivered to the summit.
Is ever more interconnected and interdependent, and working collaboratively is the best way we can serve our people. Our long-standing commitment to international law, multilateralism, and active engagement in international fora motivates us to advocate for an inclusive international system that leaves no one behind. And in that context, there is an urgent need to end war and conflict. War and conflict damages and undermines economy and economic growth. And in that context, there must be renewed efforts to end the illegal invasion of Ukraine by Russia and the war that has ensued, and also the horrors of Gaza and the appalling situation in Sudan. We must work very hard to end these wars in addition to the many other conflicts. Ireland advocates for economic growth to be inclusive, to be resilient, and to be environmentally sustainable. And our focus has always been on investment in human capital in terms of education and training as the key underpinning of economic growth into the future. Economic growth has to contribute to equality, to poverty reduction, and must align with international commitments on climate change and environmental protection. Ireland welcomes the G20 efforts that support inclusive growth on the African continent and beyond, seeing this as an endorsement of the Agenda 2030 commitment to reach the furthest behind first. Women's economic empowerment is crucially important as a direct pathway towards gender equality, poverty eradication, and inclusive economic growth. Ireland values policy interventions that support investment in local and regional value chains, which support quality jobs creation, raise living standards, and enhance resilience.
Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, ascertained Jamaica is a country wholeheartedly supports the global agenda.
Jamaica supports the global agenda to make economic growth not only strong and sustainable, but also inclusive and resilient. Jamaica's story is one of social partnership and sacrifice. We transformed our economy after decades of instability through disciplined macro-fiscal reforms anchored in responsible debt management, institutional strengthening, and targeted pro-growth initiatives. We reduced our debt, lowered poverty and unemployment, contained inflation, stabilized foreign exchange, and built robust reserves. Now, our focus is on translating the dividends of sacrifice into investments in our people. Getting the policy mix right is both an economic and moral imperative. Yet, one external shock can undo years of progress. Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 storm, has devastated 7 parishes. Its impact will negatively affect our debt trajectory, and the road ahead will be challenging. This is our reality today, but it is also a reality told by small island developing states in CARICOM and indeed across the world. Global partnership will be essential to our recovery. The G20 commitment in 2021 to recycle SDR allocations led to the creation of the IMF Resilience and Sustainability Trust.
In Ethiopia, we have learned that inclusivity is not charity, it is efficiency. When every farmer, entrepreneur, and innovator shares in progress, the economy becomes self-sustaining. Our journey has been tested by drought, conflict, and global shocks. Yet from those tests emerges transformative renewal. We are investing in renewable energy that powers both homes and hope, digital infrastructures that connect the citizens, and green agriculture turning smallholder farmers into climate champions. Excellencies, we're not here to speak of despair. We're here to speak of possibility and of shared responsibility. In that spirit, let me highlight 3 priorities. First, debt. Ethiopia has engaged actively with the G20 common framework to unlock resources. Debt relief must translate into investments that empower people and secure the future, including educated children, modern hospitals, and resilient infrastructure. Second, climate. Through our Green Legacy Initiative, Ethiopians have planted over 48 billion seedlings, restoring soils, watersheds, and hope ecological restoration must become the new global investment landscapes, supported by debt for climate swaps and green value chains that reward nature and communities. Third, energy and digital transformation.
First, we do need to tackle global imbalances, like excessive surpluses and deficits. which can disrupt trade flows, sever supply chains, and choke off growth. For deficit countries, that means acting to stop unsustainable borrowing and prioritise the investment and structural reforms that drive up growth. For surplus countries, it means taking action to reduce subsidies and other trade distortions, as well as measures to boost domestic consumption. Second, we should promote open and balanced trade, taking steps to liberalise trade where we can, with new agreements that lower tariffs and barriers and return to the stability and certainty that business needs. This is a real priority for my government, and I'm proud of the agreements we've reached and the progress that we've made with partners like India and the EU, benefiting our economies and creating new opportunities for our people. Third, in an era of instability, we need to make our economies more resilient. In the UK, this means an unshakable commitment to fiscal discipline, and it means investing in growth in critical areas like clean energy production. We want to work with partners around the world on this to protect us all from future energy shocks, and we want to act together to secure vital supply chains, including for critical minerals.
More than half of our national climate budget, around $2.5 billion annually, to support green MSMEs, agricultural insurance, and climate-resilient infrastructure. Indonesia also promotes financial inclusion. Our national CRIS digital payment system demonstrates how a simple and low-cost digital solution can push participation in the economy and minimize inequality. Emerging technologies such as crypto asset, digital tokens, including Bitcoin, may create both opportunities and risks. Therefore, Indonesia proposes that the G20 initiate dialogue on intelligence economy. Indonesia believes that every country is entitled to chart its own development path because there is no single model that fits all. There is no such thing called the best method. Cooperation must empower, not dictate. Cooperation must uplift, not create dependency.
Technology is a strong ally in this effort. We must maximize the opportunities it provides while mitigating its risks. This includes fostering digital transformation and ensuring that job creation aligns with the needs of the future economy based on the upskilling and reskilling of labor. It is therefore necessary to design policies that facilitate investment by establishing conditions for the development of a market policy, vocational training and education for work that facilitates growth, the creation of wealth, and quality jobs, accompanied by labor flexibility policies. Development policies must be directed toward creating an environment that encourages private investment by reducing risks and taxes, protecting individual property rights, ensuring predictability, and enabling all people to pursue the success of their ventures based on merit, effort, vision, and innovation. When the foundations of growth are respected, solidarity and equality of opportunity become achievable and sustainable over time. Distinguished Chair, esteemed leaders, finally, I wish to draw to your attention to the draft document circulated yesterday. As we all recognize, this G20 represents an important opportunity to demonstrate our collective commitment to the development of the African continent and its people. Argentina has sought to contribute meaningfully and constructively to the consensus-building process. We have shared the red lines we identified in this context, aiming to support the G20's broader goals. Those red lines remain until this time. We all know that the G20 is a premier global forum for coordinating economic actions. Its core principle is consensus, which reflects the reality that all of us must work together to accomplish our shared objectives, ensuring financial stability, fostering economic growth, and strengthening collective development.
trading system recognizes that when trade is fair, transparent, and properly regulated, it's a key driver of development and a tool for lifting millions out of poverty. Trade must serve people, generating well-paid jobs, fair wages, and opportunities that foster social inclusion. In the economic sphere, Mexico promotes a strategy of shared prosperity that places workers at the center of decision-making processes, recognizing that decent work is the foundation of a better quality of life. In this sustainability dimension, our priority is to prevent, reduce, and reverse environmental degradation while fostering a circular economy. Our national energy policy advances renewable sources and accelerates the transition toward cleaner production and consumption patterns, while ensuring equitable access to water as a fundamental human right. Through the Plan Mexico, we are empowering MSMEs by integrating them into national and global value chains, facilitating access to credit, digital tools, and capacity building program is essential for equitable growth and innovation. At the same time, we are investing in human capital, aligning education and training systems with the skills needed for the green and digital transitions. Environmental sustainability lies at the heart of Mexico's industrial and trade policy. We promote investment that meets standards on water reuse, clean energy, and solid waste management, with encouraging community-centered business practices. Environmental responsibility and resource efficiency are not obstacles to competitiveness. They are its foundation.
They are currently deviating from development finance to military expenditures. Thus, financing goes back to the Western economies, and in many cases through the corruption schemes in Ukraine. The World Bank, for example, has provided Ukraine with more aid in 3 years than to all African countries combined. Moreover, African economies face biased rejections and complicated procedures of funding from the World Bank and the IMF. Definitely, all these institutions should be reformed to benefit the Global South. Dear colleagues, global economy and its growth structure has already changed. BRICS and countries of the Global South now form the dominant driver of global growth. We have the talent, the resources, the technology, and the capacity to drive growth and improve the lives of our people. Unlike in previous decades, the Global South economies are ready this time to move forward with their own platform for economic growth, based on their own solutions. In technology and education, in trade and connectivity, in finance and investments. The rise of this emerging platform of growth becomes more evident with each passing year. The fact that growth in the 21st century will come mainly from the Global South is indisputable. We call the G-20 to get back to the fundamentals of sustainable development. It means poverty reduction, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. This should be based on sound economic development, which includes fighting protectionist and illegitimate unilateral measures, including sanctions, tariffs, technological and educational restrictions. To fulfill this mandate, the G20 should stay a multilateral platform for coordinated action acting in solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Russia is ready to play an important role in this process.
My biggest worry right now is that we are not seeing enough multilateralism in 3 key conflicts that have been raging around the world. 1, Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. 2, the situation in Gaza. And 3, the situation in Sudan. So I hope that we lean towards multilateralism. And let me say, coming from a small country, what I believe the West should do in this. I think the West should understand that the multilateral institutions that were created after World War II and that were upheld after the Cold War, the power structure of them is right now unfair. It needs to be changed. We need to distribute power in a world that exists today, not the world that existed in 1945. That is the best way for us to drive multilateralism and get it back on track.
Digital inclusion is a key enabler of a growing economy, and we're supportive of work to develop a fair and inclusive digital economy with effective rules for digital trade. Trade and investment need to create opportunities for those considered the furthest behind, particularly women and marginalised groups. And Ireland, along with the European Union, is committed to an open and rules-based multilateral trading system with a modernised WTO at its core. The rules and the standards that the WTO provides are crucial for all of us who depend on global trade and allow all trading nations to benefit. The stability and the predictability provided by the rules-based multilateral trading system is key in supporting sustainable development. It does have to, however, be modernised and must also address the impact of the increasing use of trade-distorting industrial policies. Growing debt servicing costs, as has been said, translates into reduction in many countries' expenditure on the core areas of health and education and social protection, again impacting their ability to reach the furthest behind first. Ireland supports the outcome of the Financing for Development Conference, the Seville Commitment, and we are supportive of the institutions and initiatives that assist countries with debt issues. And these include the G-20, which has developed and is overseeing the implementation of the Common Framework for Debt Treatments, the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable, and the Paris Club. And we continue to call, where appropriate, for reform and improvements of these institutions and initiatives. These priorities have guided our active engagement in the G20 this year, and we support South Africa in this endeavour.
This facility provides developing countries with relatively low-cost financing and longer maturities. We urge the G20 to preserve and strengthen this mechanism. We also call for innovative, flexible financing solutions, such as thematic bonds for climate adaptation and blended finance structures to support resilient infrastructure designed to meet the unique needs of climate-vulnerable economies. Jamaica further calls on the G20 to advance a rules-based, equitable, global trading framework that enhances predictability, flexibility, and resilience for small economies. This should include expanding access to targeted financing and risk insurance instruments tailored to the needs of SIDS, supporting technological upgrading and productive capacity enhancement, integrating multidimensional vulnerability indices into eligibility and financing terms across IFIs and climate funds, so countries can invest in resilience without compromising fiscal stability. Establishing a loss and damage financing window with clear rules-based triggers for timely and predictable support. Advancing a global skills and trade compact for SIDS to strengthen human capital competitiveness and inclusive growth. Excellencies, through these actions, the G20 can ensure that global trade and financial systems become more than engines of growth. They can become forces for shared prosperity, resilience, and sustainability, leaving no nation behind.
The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam symbolizes Africa's renewable ambition. We are expanding into solar, wind, geothermal, and nuclear power, and we envision an Africa energy network that drives industrialization while achieving net zero emissions. Through Digital Ethiopia, we have liberalized telecom, expanded broadband, and advanced digital finance. By 2030, we aim to complete our national digital public infrastructure, integrating IDs, payments, and data platforms to serve citizens. For Ethiopia, artificial intelligence is a tool for inclusion, helping predict droughts, diagnose diseases, and support local language, ensuring technology works for all. Excellencies, Ethiopia's journey mirrors that of many emerging economies. Our success offers lessons, our challenges offer insights. Inclusivity, and sustainable growth is both a practical and a moral imperative for our continent. It requires humility to reconsider what we treasure and courage to redefine what we value. I propose that the G20 adopt a new lens, measures resilience as growth. Let us count not only GDP, but the capacity of societies to withstand and adapt, because that ultimately is what sustains development. Ethiopia stands ready, rooted in Medemar, to contribute to this shared global journey.
Together to ensure organisations like the WTO are more able to be agile with new rules to meet modern challenges like environmental and digital trade, and better and more flexible decision-making processes so that those who want to make progress can get on and do it. Finally, we do need to work together to tackle the unique challenges facing emerging economies, especially in Africa, whether it's the growing debt burden or the financing gap for the Sustainable Development Goals. This G20 is the moment to respond to these structural challenges and to deliver more stable and resilient finance. We're working on that through the London Coalition on Sustainable Debt. We need to go further under the G20 Common Framework to make debt restructuring better, faster, and easier. And we need to crowd in more private capital. We're working with the industry to break down regulatory barriers in the United Kingdom, and we want to see multilateral development banks take more risk and partner more with the private sector in new, innovative ways to mobilise finance. AJ and I have been discussing this in some detail, and I think we agree there's huge potential for this to go further. For the good of all our people, it is time to make it happen.
Integrity of this process by acknowledging when consensus has not been achieved, rather than proceeding with a document that does not accurately reflect our collective will. Moreover, we're deeply concerned with how certain geopolitical issues are framed in the document. Specifically, it addresses the long-standing Middle East conflict in a manner that fails to capture its full complexity. By focusing on a single dimension of a specific territory, it overlooks the broader regional context, the international recognition of different entities, and the structural causes of the dispute. In this regard, I wish to recall the recent adoption of UN Security Council Resolution 2803 on November 17th, which emphasizes the international community's support for a just and lasting peace in the Middle East, while calling for a comprehensive, fair process to address all aspects of the conflict. In closing, Argentina, although cannot endorse the declaration based on the aforementioned discrepancies, remains fully committed to the spirit of cooperation that has defined the G20 since its inception. We're convinced that only through genuine dialogue, respect for consensus, and adherence to the principles of the United Nations Charter and international law can this forum continue to keep working constructively with all members and partners, with a shared aim on strengthening global stability, promoting sustained growth, and advancing development in a manner that is inclusive, balanced, and respectful of our diversity.
And vulnerable economies in Africa and Latin America will strengthen those nations and create a more resilient and sustainable international financial system, where the benefits of trade and cooperation can reach all populations. Mexico has supported instruments for debt treatments such as the Common Framework and the G20 Ministerial Declaration of Debt Sustainability. We have also developed a sustainable debt management strategy by using debt instruments under favorable conditions, including local currency and fixed interest rate bonds. Through sound public budget management, Mexico has increased investment in social protection and education above 6% and 4% in real annual terms, respectively. Thus, we advocate for international debt frameworks that enables this development-oriented approach, preserving fiscal space for health, education, and sustainable infrastructure. The G20 must lead by example in implementing the Sevilla commitment, strengthening the common framework, and expanding it to include middle-income and climate-vulnerable countries is both a moral and economic necessity. The G20, the United Nations, and international financial institutions must act in coherence. Mexico calls for an advancement of its synergies between the Sevilla Action Platform, the Pact for the Future, and G20 financial track. Mexico believes that the strength of the G20 lies not only in its economic power, but in its collective moral responsibility. Let us lead with courage and conviction to make trade fair, debt sustainable, and development truly inclusive.
The recent G20 summit, being the very first one to be conducted in the African soil, was concluded with leaders present at the summit adopting a 122-paragraph-long declaration, sending a signal for multilateral cooperation and an agreement to work closer for a safer world.